welcome to Two Balding Nerds. My name is George,
And my name is Kellen.
and today we're discussing the second episode of the Book of Boba Fett, which is Chapter 2, The Tribes of Tatooine. I'd say a nice step up from the first episode. What do you think?
Oh, huge improvement. All the little like nitpicks and things that we, didn't really care for in the first episode. This didn't have any of that.
Yes, I can definitely say this one. I think we discussed near the end of the first episode where we were like, yeah, it was a good first step, but it wasn't quite where we were looking for. But as long as they can build off of that and go from there, then all is forgiven. And pretty much, yeah, all is forgiven. There was not much to really forgive, but it's already stepping it up, and I go, yes, I'm getting even more onto the bandwagon of enjoying this show.
Yeah, I definitely was very pleased with this episode. There was a little bit more humor in this episode. I liked Shan's remark at the beginning of the episode regarding, the assassin and the group that guy came from, and her saying, "Oh, you're paying for the name." I thought that was a real meta reference towards like people with iPhones and stuff like that.
I never thought of it that way, but I see what you're saying. I personally love the fact that they threw him into the Rancor pit, and for a moment I was like, oh, did he get like is there like an animal that Bib Fortuna had or that he has? And then it just ended up being a bluff, and I was like, what a crappy assassin that he buckled under the threat of being eaten by something versus just being killed.
Yeah, I've for a split second there too. I was like, wait, did Bib get a new Rancor? Because I'm like, the last one was killed. So I was like, kind of on edge myself, and then I was like, as a gate went up, I'm like, there's nothing there. And then I realized that they were bluffing, and yeah, the guy buckled. Man, for Master Assassin, buckling that quick, you should just off yourself. I mean,
Yeah,
seriously.
no. Yeah, no. As far like I thought to myself, like, could you imagine if Boba Fett had, if it was like a different reality, and Boba Fett had been like, oh yeah, I didn't get Han Solo the first time, but he's gonna be there. Don't worry, Jabba. I'll get him. Like just completely being a complete wuss as opposed to being the badass that we know he is. It's like if Boba Fett, some random gun for hire, can do better than these elite trained assassins, like what's the point of being elite trained assassins? Or I guess space ninjas?
I mean, you can be a Master Assassin, but Boba Fett's the main character, so he has plot armor.
Indeed.
Um, every time I see that Major Domo on the screen, man, I just want to punch him right in the teeth. That
Yep.
guy makes my blood boil. I don't know what it is about him. I just hate him. And I'm like really hoping that at some point during the show, I mean, he hasn't even done anything to deserve comeuppance, but I want him to get his comeuppance from Boba Fett. I just want him to kill him.
I overall quite like watching him always squirm because he kind of reminds me of if you ever worked in retail or anything like that, especially at like a Walmart or those type of jobs. Not picking on Walmart personally, but just a job where you constantly are dealing with people of the public, and you've been given a kind of a trained order of being like, okay, you have to be polite and you always have to be courteous and everything like that. I feel like that's kind of the behavior he's putting forward, where it's like he knows that this is a really dumb thing to be saying to someone who technically is in charge, but his boss will literally kill him if he doesn't. So it's just so cringy painful to watch him on screen.
Yeah, that's a
And
good example. It's cringy.
yeah, and I do feel a little bit empathy, like I said, because it's like, yeah, I've definitely in real life I could say there's people I've met who've been like that, who had to like cow down to a really unfortunate job or really crappy person to work with or whatever, and it's like, oh, it's so painful to watch. But overall, he's doing a good job as a character, or as an actor, I can definitely say. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
it's just so painful.
yeah. I mean, some actors, they really relish that being that character that everyone hates. Like
Mm.
they get some sort of level of enjoyment out of it. What did you think about the twins showing up with the Wookiee.
Oh, I like that. I quite like that because I was just like, oh, excellent huts. I like the fact they even also made finally reference to Hutta because like overall knowing about the hut culture and everything like that, or not really the culture, but knowing just about the huts in general from legends, it's nice to see that they're starting to expand on that more. So I was very happy to see them show up. I don't know who the twins really are. I'm not familiar with them. They might have been like referenced in other things.
They've shown up in previous continuity. If you ever watched the Clone Wars, I believe that they're in the Clone Wars. There's a short story arc that includes both of them in that show.
Okay, okay, because I remember the purple one. Now their its name escapes me. I think was in the Clone Wars movie, or
I think his name is Zero. Zero the Hutt.
it's you can always just guess with the hut at the end. But um, yeah, it's I wasn't aware that they were in, or I didn't recall them being in the Clone Wars. It's been a while since I watched it. But I was overall just thrilled to see more huts, and I loved how they got paraded in. And I feel really sorry for whatever that white fluffy creature is that he's using as a sponge. That I I, I pity that creature quite a bit.
I'm really hoping that's the only thing he's using it for.
Same here. Also, it made me just kind of go, and I looked over at my rabbit, being like, "You're a good rabbit. No one will do that to you." But it's like I can I can say I liked how they also the smugness that they had, and then when they brought out the Wookiee there, who I know has a name and I know has fought Obi-Wan at some point,
Yes,
but I
so
cannot remember much about him other than that.
the Wookiee, his name is Black Chrysanthemum. And yes, in a comic book, he did fight Obi-Wan Kenobi. And actually, if you look at him, he has a scar above his eye, or like around one of his eyes, and that was actually given to him by Obi-Wan Kenobi.
No, so what you're saying is a really hairy situation.
Of course. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Wookiee because he's gonna kick some ass. We've seen what Chewbacca can do, and Chewbacca, by all intents and purposes, is a pretty mild mannered Wookiee. So this one looks like it's pretty pissed off, and from what I understand, used to be a gladiator, and then turned bounty hunter. So he's probably pretty badass.
I'm kind of wondering also just because the way that Boba Fett and him interacted. Do you think Boba Fett and him had any dealings beforehand? Because it's kind of like the bounty hunters have their kind of not so much of a guild, but like when they all were there in episode 5 of Empire Strikes Back, uh, there was stories afterwards of Boba trying to get Han Solo's kryptonite body back to Jabba the Hutt, and all of them were kind of coming after him. And he knew the ones that were coming after him because it was the same ones there, like G88 and Voss and a few of the others.
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's like in any sort of field of work, you sort of develop a reputation, and people start to know you by name, even if they don't know you personally. They know of you, sort of thing. Like I know you personally haven't watched John Wick, but in John Wick, there's like a assassins sort of like hotel that they all go to around the world, and it's called the Continental. And basically, that's where they hang out. It's kind of like a safe zone. So if like assassins have contracts out against other assassins, if you're in this hotel, they say, oh, there's no work can be carried out on continental ground. So it's like a safe zone, right? So I think at some point these two have had dealings with one another, either working against one another for a bounty or working together or something. But you can tell right away by like the look that they gave one another. I know you. I know what you're capable of, and this is going to be fun, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's I can agree with that.
So further on in the episode, um, when we're back at the flashback scene where he's dealing with the uh, the Tusken Raiders there, and there's that train that's like just flying down the Dune Sea. When I first saw that train, the first thing that jumped to my mind was Imperials. I don't know about you. What did you think when you first saw that coming in?
Uh, The train actually threw me off a little bit because I was looking at it going like that doesn't make sense for Imperials in my mind. And when I was kind of hemming and hawing it, my wife was like, "Hey, isn't that a pike?" I was like, and I kind of went, and she was like, "Yeah, you know those funny looking guys that deal with spice all the time." And then sure enough, she was right. I was like, "Oh, well done, my wife. This is why I love you." So I didn't have much time to actually think about what they were before my wife had already guessed it. Um, and so it threw me off too because when she said it, I was also kind of thinking like, well, why would they be on Tatooine? Because there, I don't recall Tatooine being a good spice location. But sure enough, I guess it is still a good territory to travel through.
Well, the reason why I thought it was the Imperials was there's been a couple times, I think in Star Wars Rebels, there's a couple times where they have train like sort of vehicles that they drive around in, and then there was also something I believe on the Mandalorian last season where they had something similar. And so that was just kind of like the first thing that popped into my mind when when they're way off in the distance and they're shooting, and I'm like, oh, it must be like Imperials or whatever, because we know at this time that they were still active. Obviously, 5 years later in the Mandalorian, they're still very active. So that was my initial thought, and then afterwards, realizing it was the Pikes, I didn't actually know who the Pikes were. I feel kind of bad, but I didn't. I didn't watch the Clone Wars all the way through. There was like a couple seasons that I didn't watch, so I wasn't quite familiar with them. So that was kind of a new experience for me, and it was interesting to see what they're all about.
So just to clarify, that vehicle you're talking about, you mean that Imperial troop transporter?
Yeah, so like with it being way off in the distance like that, of course you don't think it's a train. You're like, oh, that might be like a transport or whatever, right?
Okay. Yeah, and the Pikes actually, if I recall, mostly I've seen them in. I guess they were. Why are they in the Clone Wars? It's been a while for the Clone Wars for me, but I know they were in. They were a little bit in the Bad Batch, and they were also in Rebels. They've popped up a few times. Or actually, no, was it Rebels? But yeah, Ahsoka dealt with them. They always just deal with spice stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, so, and they overall, I can say, seeing them from the animated world translated to the real world, or live action, they did a pretty good job of translating them, actually.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it's very reminiscent, very close. I think one thing I skipped over accidentally was the whole scene of Boba Fett um, dealing with the biker gang and going and stealing all their speeder bikes. Or did that happen? That
Yes,
happened after the first go by with the train, right?
yeah, that happened after the go by with the train.
Oh, okay.
So, because
So
he got the bikes after the train incident, if I recall.
yeah, so of course, I troll around YouTube, and I found out that where that bar fight happened with the biker gang, that was actually the Tosche station.
Oh, the place to pick up the power converters?
Yes, Luke, to pick up the power converters, and apparently, as kind of like an Easter egg, that man and woman that were there.
Yeah, that was Luke's friends. That
Yes,
was in a deleted scene.
yes, of course. So I didn't know that until I actually, like I said, I watched this YouTube video that kind of like pointed out Easter eggs, and I thought, oh, that was a cool, nice little touch. Like I like to think of myself as or a big Star Wars fan, but I wouldn't consider myself a diehard. That knows literally everything. Just an absolute encyclopedia. So I was glad that they put stuff like that in for the real diehard fans.
Yeah, no, like I literally Star Wars is so important to me, and I know a lot about Star Wars, but even stumbling through here, uh, because I'm not going to remember every single name off the top of my head and everything, because there's other things I do in life. But there are people who, bless their soul, like they know this stuff so well, and I'm so impressed with how they can literally just name a character or go like, "Oh yeah, this person was from this deleted scene." I literally, funny enough, also going through YouTube, it said deleted. I saw a thing that said deleted scene, um, and it referenced those characters, and I was like, "Oh, okay, those were the characters from that because it was in the comment section that they mentioned it. So I only learned about that just recently too, and I saw the scene. I was like, oh, that's neat. And I love when they throw in little things like that because that just it makes the fans so happy for them to have that level of care and detail. It once again it makes us as fans go, you cared enough to include something that no one would have been like, "Oh, you have to do this. This will be super important. If you don't do this, people will be mad." It's like, no, you did it because you knew it would make us happy, and I can't appreciate it enough.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the bar fight scene. It was basically, how we discussed last episode, how we wanted to see badass Boba Fett, and then we were a little bit, tired of watching him get his ass kicked all episode. To see him go in there and just wipe the floor with those guys was really pleasing for me.
Absolutely. I also can say, just with in regards to him with the Tusken Raiders, I'm loving seeing him learn to fight with the gaffy stick because I go when he showed up in Mandalorian, he all of a sudden kicked people's ass with the gaffy stick. I was like, that is odd. I've never heard of Boba Fett using that, so I'm happy for them to be finally explaining that. I also can say overall, I really like seeing just how he's learning to fight. I used to do martial arts when I was younger, and I learned to fight with a bow staff. And certain styles of how they're moving is reminiscent of that, and that makes me go like, "Oh, my favorite sport and one of my favorite franchises are becoming one. What a beautiful concept!" So it's really neat seeing like just the way he's training and fighting with it and learning. Um, I think is just such a cool concept in my mind, and I also like it because I think, if I recall, the actor who plays Boba Fett, he's from New Zealand, if I recall.
Yes, Tamora Morrison is of Maori descent.
Yes, and so I think they mentioned like he did. I believe it's called the haka, or it's a certain type of like.
It's a ritualistic dance.
Thank you, Everett. That's
It's
perfect.
I think it's called like a war dance, and it's meant to kind of like strike fear into your enemies. It's meant to be like a show of intimidation, right?
Yeah, and I think he said he had a weapon. There's a weapon, a traditional weapon of their people that is similar to the gaffy stick, so that he was able to incorporate that, and that's such a cool connection. Another thing, too, quick little thing with the haka. It's what the
The rugby team, the New
yeah,
Zealand
they're
All Blacks.
and there we go. The New Zealand All Blacks. They do the haka before their matches. It's really quite a neat little spectacle. I'd recommend looking it up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if you haven't watched it and you're listening to this, pause it and go watch it, and you'll see what we're talking about. Um, with that being said, one of the best parts of the episode for me was watching Boba Fett teach the Tuskens how to ride speeders.
That was hilarious. That was a great level of comedy, especially with it when the one went reverse. That was I liked how they were able to keep it short and sweet with the like didn't feel dragged on at all. The comedy of it was just perfect.
Yeah, I really like how he shows up with them, and the first thing they start doing is just stripping it. And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! What the hell are you doing?"
It's just the Tatooine way. Hey, look, there's something here. Destroy it.
Yeah, I know, so funny. I got a few laughs like when they're practicing jumping from one speeder to the next, and he just like keeps bailing and eating shit in the sand.
Yes, I agree. And overall, the whole fight on the train was really I quite enjoyed. The
Honestly,
whole
that was some of the best action I've seen in Star Wars in a long time. Like it was excellent, really well done. And that one Tusken that was training Boba with the gaffy stick, which apparently, according to a lot of YouTubers, is actually a female Tusken, and at least the person portraying that Tusken Raider is actually a woman. Um, so people are theorizing that it's actually a Tusken woman, and man, is that character totally awesome and just kicks so much ass. I love the part when they just like full on crash the speeder into the train, just like screwed up a couple of the cars out like behind where they hit, and just
Mhm.
went in and just like took out so many pikes. It was just an awesome scene all around. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. I was actually kind of wondering about that because back in the day, if I recall, in episode two, Attack of the Clones, the female Tusken Raiders looked quite different from what I recall. I think they did an artistic change to it, or maybe it's one tribe from another. It's different, but either way, I am 100% on board with how they've been portraying this character. And
Yeah,
even though, and I find it funny because clearly I don't know what they're saying, and I assumed just based off the body shape and stuff, that one might have been female, but that was just a hunch. If someone said nope, they're actually male, I'd be like, okay, I wasn't betting money on it to begin with, but I really like the fact that just I guess her fighting style is just so brutal and so awesome.
yeah. I've really been enjoying that character, and I hope to see more out of that character and more flashback scenes that I imagine that we'll get throughout the series. Um, what did you think about after that when the chieftain gifts Boba with a gecko that goes into his brain and starts him on his spirit quest? What do you think about that whole sequence?
I was gonna say when they were dealing with the spice with the Pikes, I was thinking, oh, they're bringing into the whole drugs thing of Star Wars. Nothing could prepare me for the amazing drugs of tripping lizards in Star Wars because that was some serious that was the most psychedelic thing I think I've seen from Star Wars yet. Where it's like, okay, you sniffed a lizard and you are going on a spirit quest for a stick. It was like the
Yeah,
Hangover Boba Fett style.
yeah, I thought that was a really like pretty trippy scene, and like I didn't know what the hell to make out of it, and then like the tree happened, and I'm like, is this where he gets his gaffy stick? You know, like does he go trip balls out in like the Tatooine desert and come back with a stick? And that's exactly what happened. He comes back with a stick, and I really loved how they they didn't there wasn't like any dialogue. It was all just visual, and you get to see kind of like a montage of him crafting his gaffy stick and personalizing it and making it his own. I thought that was really cool and like a real like good character building moment. That happens completely without any sort of dialogue, right? I
Absolutely.
thought I thought that was great, and then I really liked how they closed out the episode with them, doing sort of like a ceremonial dance around the fire and accepting him into the tribe. I thought that was awesome.
100% agree. I can definitely say there was parts of me that goes like, okay, I just want to see Boba Fett being a gangster leader and just ruling over his new miniature empire in the with the power vacuum of Boba of Bib Fortuna and Jabba being gone. But I can't. I want to see more of the Tusken Raider stuff too, so I'm a little bit torn on being like, oh, get to the point, but actually no more Tusken stuff. Like I'm can't quite fit in where I want to be. But in particular, the scene of him making his gaffy stick, I thought was incredibly well done. I agree. The lack of dialogue and seeing the care and precision that went into making it, which I never realized before that was so important to the Tusken Raiders. And then when they were doing that ceremonial dance, once again, that reminded me of my martial arts because in martial arts, you do a thing called a kata or a form, depending on which style you're doing. And I was told by my sensei that some of the katas were taught in the form of dance so that they could teach people how to fight without the overlords at the time catching on and then punishing them for learning to fight. So when I saw them all doing it as kind of a ritualistic dance to accept him, I was like, oh, that was 100% once again tapping into that kind of native fighting style and everything like that, and I just loved it.
Same here. All right. If you had to rate this episode out of 10, what are you giving it?
I have to say I give it uh, the highest 8 out of 10, if not a 9 out of 10. It was a nice step in the right direction, and it's to me it's building off of the last one, and it's once again building more into the Tusken Raiders, which I never asked for, but I'm loving every step of it. And it's also bringing in more people from more Star Wars lore, like the Pikes. I'm like, yes, loving it. And Boba Fett is it's also explaining more of why Boba Fett is the way he is now, as opposed to how we knew him before. And it's helping me uh, grow more liking how it's like this is still the same Boba Fett. It's just his character has evolved, which I'm great and fine with the idea of evolution of characters.
Yeah, myself here, I'll read out what I wrote here. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. It was rich with story and with action. The pacing of the episode was well done as well. There was nothing in this episode for me to even nitpick at. It was excellent television. I was completely captivated from start to finish of this episode, and that doesn't really happen very much anymore nowadays. There's always something to gripe about, but I thought this episode was pretty damn near flawless. I give this one 10 out of 10.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, it was like I watched it again today, and I was just as enthused about it today, writing my notes about this episode. It was just great, and I hope to get more episodes like this. One of the big things, about the last episode that I mentioned, was a runtime of like 35 minutes, something like that. This was like 48 minutes. That's what
Well,
every episode should be, at least that long.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so like I said before, there's plenty of story to be told. I don't think having a longer runtime for these episodes is going to hurt this show. I think it's just going to be good for it. So, with that being said, I think that kind of concludes all we have to discuss about episode 2. And I know I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in episode 3 and beyond. So, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe our channel. We are going to be putting out more content like this. So go click that button, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Indeed. See you next time.